Hi, Tim Sales here, and thank you for watching. In this series of videos, what I'm going to go through here is that sitting behind everything you do is an identity within you pushing towards or against your goals. All right, and so the faster, so this is kind of like, here's your friend, here's your foe, which is an enemy. And the faster you spot and correct the enemy identities, the faster that you actually attain your goals. And so it's not so much about time, it's about how many barriers or stoppers can you get out in between where you are and where your goal is. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. All right, so we have enemies versus friendly identities, all right? And this is part one. This is going to be a three-part series, just simply because it would go on too long for typical YouTube videos. And so the previous videos that I've done have to do with enemy actions towards the goals, right? And so procrastination, distractions, lack of motivation, lack of resources, and hoping instead of controlling your business. And this video is about friendly actions and identities. The purpose of all three of these series is to catch enemy identities and replace them with friendly identities, like real quick, okay? So let me jump in here and just give you a little bit of like orientation as to where we are. We're on what's called the bridge to the pipeline. The pipeline is how you acquire customers. It is how you acquire sales team. It's how you acquire votes if you're a politician. It's how you get customers if you're, I don't know, like a doctor, or I guess it would be called a patient in that case. If you're an attorney, everybody has to do these steps in any acquisition process. And so what I'm doing is I'm building a bridge to it as to what you need to be and to do in order to be successful at this. And where we are right now is carve out the space in your life in order to do it, and then make the time for it. And so that's where we are, just on an orientation basis. Okay, so far today, I assumed the identity of an early riser. In other words, I woke up, and as soon as I woke up, I jumped up and got dressed. I assumed the identity of a healthy eater. I assume the identity of a helpful dad. Okay, so I'm helping my kids and my wife getting ready for school. Okay, and so that's the identity of the helpful husband, the identity of the author. And so I sat down and I wrote this up. And then the identity of a weightlifter. So I lifted weights. The identity of a weightlifting spotter with my wife, because me and my wife are partners in training. I assume the identity of a presenter, and that's where I am right now. And so I want you to just kind of get this idea. And more than anything else, I want to pass on to you this concept, and I want to make sure that you really feel where and what this identity thing is all about, because it's kind of like not a common conversation. And so I brought up two hats here. And so one of them is a black hat and one of them is a white hat. All right. And so it kind of has a military type of a phenomenon with it, because there's black hat operations and white hat operations. And so let's just call it that the white hat operations are the ones that are going to get you to your goals, and black hat operations are those that are going to prevent you from getting to your goals. Okay? And so now that you've kind of got this idea, so you can picture putting on a black hat, right? So right in the middle of your goals, you all of a sudden you put on a black hat, and maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's confusion. Maybe it's distracted by a video or something like that. Okay? And so most people don't know what the white hats are. They know that they procrastinate. They know that they go into confusion. They know all these different things. And so they don't know which hat to put on. All right? That's what's going on. And if I can just give you just a second to really like give you a feeling of this. So let's say that you are on a diet and you've set out and you've established how many calories you're going to eat or how much you're going to exercise or whatever it is, and you get invited to come to a buffet, maybe for lunch. There's a buffet that's going on a Sunday or something, one of those big spreads, and so you're saying, fine, I'm gonna eat what is on my list. Right? So that's white hat, right? That's white hat identity that you've got going on here. And then as soon as you come in and you start going through there and you're like, nope, nope, nope. And then all of a sudden you see something that you really, really want. Oh, all right. I want you to get that feeling of this hat going, no, 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 no. Turn around, turn around, turn around. And you're like, nah, okay. And then you feel yourself like looking back, right? That is slowly putting on the black hat. You're not fully committed to the white hat right now. You're now easing into, well, it really wouldn't hurt that bad, right? I've been really so good for the last 2 weeks, and so this hat becomes like you're putting it on. You could also take up the idea of a husband or a wife that are, they're committed to their spouse, and they find themselves, somewhere, and then a guy or a girl comes up and starts talking to them, and they slowly reach and start taking off their wedding band, right? So what's happening right here? Okay, so the white hat right there, right, and then suddenly this thing starts to change and a new identity comes in. And so this taking on the identity of a cheater, right? Ignoring that long-term effect of what that's going to look like, right? And so you better snap to real quick, and you're putting it in your pocket, right? You better find a white hat real fast, because the long-term effects, especially having to do with kids and having to do with all kinds of things. And so a lot of times when people are in that moment, they always have this idea, and it's a weird thing that always comes in. It says, oh, it won't be that bad of a mistake, right? And when it comes to goals and earning money, you can't afford these black hats, okay? They're unforgiving, okay? So they're just unforgiving because they begin to become easy. They become the default, okay? So I wanted to just really get this idea between this identity concept before I move forward, because then you'll really understand why this is so important. So all of these identities are friends of my goals. They're friends of my goals. They are in cooperation with my goals. And so you could say the black hat or the enemy hat would be out of cooperation. They're trying to destroy the progress towards the goal. All right. So now I can move on and get into this. So catch yourself. All right. So putting on the enemy jacket. So we can call it a hat. We can call it a jacket. So if you're not frequently putting on a hat, think about putting on a jacket. And the jacket could be that evil identity or that white hat identity or the white jacket. Okay. So it's just kind of putting it on and wrapping it around you and becoming that. That's kind of like the concept of identity. So these procrastination. Well, you know what? I've done enough. I called one prospect today. It's not what I said I would do. I said I would call 3, but I'm just going to call 1 today. It's all right. It's not that big of a deal. They're probably not home anyway. See all those kind of like black jacket things coming on? They slip in there. All right. Distractions, hanging on to old habits and routines, confusions, no motivation, victim of no resources. In other words, you act like, well, I don't have any money, I can't do it, and I don't have any time, I can't do it, and all of these things, these are black hat operations, right? Hoping instead of controlling your business. All right, so I'll give you 2 identities that are going to help you in this particular video, and I'm going to go through this in the part 1 series. In other words, this is part 1 of a 3-part. And I'm not going to go through all of these later in the other ones. This one, I just want to make sure that you really get this feeling of this black jacket or this black hat, okay? So procrastination. All right, so where does it come from, originate from? It lack of ownership of actions or identities, right? So in other words, you're not owning it. And that's the reason that you would procrastinate. Lack of accountability. All right, what did I say I was going to get done? Well, I didn't get it done. Lack of discipline. Okay, so that's just self-discipline. Discipline comes in when you keep on speeding and you can't slow your lead foot. You keep driving faster and faster or fast all the time and things like that. And you can't control your own discipline. Now the police have to come in and discipline you. So self-discipline is when you control what you do. Discipline is when you get in trouble, end up in court, getting fined, stuff like that. Fear of failing, self, right? So this fear of failing causes procrastination. Okay, well, what hat would you have to put on in order to say, I fear failing? Who are you being? Okay, you're projecting forward failure. It's the only way that could happen. Lack of clarity. Well, get clear. Get clarity on what it is that you're doing. That's a clear vision, a clear plan, and where you are in the plan. Lack of motivation. What a hat. I don't have any motivation today. Well, who's saying that? You are. But you got a black hat on when you're saying it. Okay? Lack of implementing and executing a new routine. Okay, so that's kind of steering into and out of the groove that you've carved in. So when you get all your habits and routines down right, real pat and solid, and they cut grooves into your life, and they project grooves, and you can predict your future that way. And if you've decided that you need to cut into that groove and up and out and head in a different direction, well, you got to cut a new groove. And when you start steering into that, then you're going to run into those old habits and routines, and and now they're black hats to you. And you got to drive on through them. So that's implementing. And then hesitating due to desire or obsession to be perfect. Okay, so it can cause procrastination. I assure you, you're not going to be perfect. All right? Not yet. Especially if you're not even trying. So, yeah, it's going to be horrible. I sucked really bad. So what? What's the big deal? It was weeks. And then I went on for 34 years to where I perfected and perfected and perfected and perfected. Okay? Everybody, when they start, they do that. All right. So these are enemy identities. And if they're there, what has been omitted? Okay, that's what I want you to always ask yourself. If you're procrastinating, what has been omitted? Friendly identities, ally identities, cooperation identities. In other words, right? So where are your friends? Right? Where's your white hats at? Okay? So that's what's going on here. Okay. So let me now we can look at this and we can say distractions. And you can pause the video if you want to read through each one of these, but distractions are kind of like chasing shiny objects, disorganization of the desk, computer, browser tabs, etc. Weak accountability to self, weak commitment to self, weak ownership of your circumstances and vision, right? And this is like the big, like, excuse manufacturing machine is sitting right underneath this. Time wasters, useless actions, failure to decide priorities, failure to put lower priorities into buckets and say, hey, I'll do this someday later. Hey, I'm going to hire somebody to do these things. I'm going to get this out of my life, my sight, so that I can focus and build my business, right? So that's the whole operation there. Other ones are hanging on to old habits and routines, yearning, longing for the old days, the way it used to be. And the next one is playing victim, all right? And so playing victim is going to say, oh my gosh, you know, I can't do this because of this, the condition, this, my husband left me or my wife left me. I have the kids to take care of. All of these things, which is playing victim to something. My upline's not helping me, then I'm not going to do anything, right? All of the things that churn up here, these are all common enemies, right? So common enemies. Okay. Confusion, another one, caused by no vision or non-compelling vision. In other words, your vision isn't motivating you, driving you. Caused by no plan. A lot of times, let me go back up to this one right here because I see it a lot. They have the money, they have the time, and what's happened is that they got so used to that. I remember a person that I knew that had gone to jail, and he got so used to that routine that he didn't want out. He's like, hey man, 3 squares a day, meaning food, right? We get to like go out and play in the yard for a little while every day. I mean, I don't think it's any better outside, right? So in other words, his wings have literally been clipped and he forgot that he even had wings of freedom. And so he got complacent, he got used to it. And so when you get in and you write a vision, and if you've written a lot of visions, a lot of goals, and you've not ever gotten any of them, attained them, then you have this sort of a, well, you know what, because he's saying to write a vision, I'll write a vision. But you're not really even there. You're not in the future saying, I'm going to have this while you're writing it. So there is not writing a vision. There's not writing a compelling vision for you that's real, right? Caused by no plan, caused by not or poor prioritizing. Prioritizing, I did a whole video on this. I really recommend that you watch that video because it has to do with, like, you can't make decisions on a day-to-day basis without you looking through the lens or the compass of your vision. Okay, so that is how you set priorities in your life. Caused by indecision, that's just basically you've got 2 things that have about the same amount of weight to them and you can't decide one or another. All right, and so it's just, you get in a habit of indecision and this is just horrible, right? You know, you just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Oh, knock it off. Just decide which one's got a little bit heavier weight on it and go with that one and get it done. Okay, so caused by indecision, and then it's caused by overwhelm. You just keep on adding and adding and adding and adding stuff. And, you know, it's just like some of these people who pack rat. They just keep on adding stuff, and they just never made a decision to throw some away. Okay, so if you find yourself in that, just throw it all away. And you go, what? Well, you'll be a whole lot better off because now you're free. I know it's difficult for people to catch that as a concept, but okay, so the last ones here are lack of motivation, lack of resources, time, money, knowledge. So sometimes this motivation has to do with your personal health. It has to do with just, you just got in a rut, right? And then time, money, knowledge, lack of resources, and in hoping instead of doing actions. All right. So as soon as you start hoping your downline builds your business for you, you're in trouble. You've lost control. You completely have surrendered that you can cause actions. And so hoping is not where you want to be. All right. So these are enemy identities. What has been omitted? The friendly identities, the ally identities. So future parts of the videos, I will not go through all of these enemies. I will just reference them real quick. All right. And so I'll kind of abbreviate the other ones. Okay. So in the next two series. So, all right. Now I can give you what we're doing here. So what friendly identities must you have? They must become character traits. I'm going to show it to you here. It must become character traits, all right? You are not born with these. They are built. They're not just here they are, okay? What they are is they are words. Everybody knows the words, but they don't know how to apply them, and they don't apply them, all right? So the first two are responsibility and ownership. Okay, so each of these have a similar ideology. So it's kind of hard to differentiate between responsibility and ownership. All right, and so they're often they're similar in ideology, but different in how you execute them. These are required identities to push out all enemy identities and attain your goal. So when I opened up in this video, I talked about waking up early, right? Like just waking up and getting after what I need to get done, right? Okay, so that's the way that you want to kind of picture that you're going to establish a perfect day, and you're going to win that day. And you do that every day and you win that week. And then you do that every day and you win that month. Okay? So you're going to build on these things. All right. And again, everyone knows these words, but few apply them. And I'm just going to say it right now. This is it. This is the most important thing that you take on. The white hat, the white jacket. Okay? It's just something very, very important. So what is responsibility? Is the total reason something happens or does not happen. Whoa. Be the reason you learn the pipeline, for an example. Okay, so if I'm going to take responsibility for this desk, then I'm going to be the total reason that something happens on this desk, to this desk, or does not happen. So if I'm a little bit concerned about my 5-year-old running around here in the studio, and there's a laptop on here, and there's a glass over here, and there's things over here, then what would I do to make sure that something does not happen to the desk? Right? So I'm probably going to step out here, and I'm going to be like this to it, right? I'm going to like make sure that my kid doesn't run into it or throw the ball across it or whatever it is, right? So I am responsible. When I'm driving in the car, I have a responsibility to get to the destination, whether it be a basketball game or a jiu-jitsu tournament or whatever it is with my kids. But don't I also have the responsibility to not have a wreck? And so when we talk about responsibility, we're talking about both sides of this thing, and we're sort of like getting on it and evaluating, projecting and saying, okay, so what could happen? And not be a worrywart. No, it's about responsibility of making sure that something doesn't happen or making sure that something does happen. Okay, so that's the application that you have here. And so you got to be the reason that you learn the pipeline. Be the reason you generate a lead. Be the reason you contact the lead. Be the reason you set an appointment to see a presentation. Be the reason you follow up and follow through. So sometimes you follow up and they don't reply to you. Okay, very good. Give them one final call, leave a message, tell them you won't be calling again. Or if they say, yes, I'm very, very interested in this, then you're going to follow through and help them get whatever it is that they stated that they wanted. Okay? And if you're not doing these things, you're the reason those things did not happen. That's the part nobody ever thinks about it. And they kind of like become the whipping boy. So they put on a black hat, right? And they look at this and they say, if you're not doing those things, you're the reason those things did not happen. And so they're like, this thing becomes a whipping boy because it's not doing it, but you're the one wearing the black hat who's doing the whipping. It's just sort of a really odd thing that once you really see this, you will see that you can take on multiple identities. Okay? And you got to really like watch it and decide based on the priority of your compelling vision, which identity you want. Right? You can choose to win and you can choose to lose. Okay, so, and responsibility is the total reason something happens or does not happen, no matter how good the excuse is. Everybody has an excuse. Everybody has an excuse. But what you've got to go for and be is, I did it because the excuse. I had to fail, but I didn't fail. Right? So when you're down there in the weeds and there's barbed wire wrapped around your legs and everything in the world that could have gone wrong did go wrong, and you come out of it and you won. In other words, have a good enough reason to succeed instead of a good enough reason to fail. Okay. Ownership is the second word. All right. And again, this is one of those that people know, they've heard it, but they don't apply it. Okay. So what does it look like? Be responsible. Okay. So ownership, be responsible for everything that impacts your business. This is the breadth of what you assume responsibility for. Okay. So I can have responsibility, okay, so ownership of this pen, right? That's, let's say, a breadth. I could have responsibility for the computer. That's a breadth, that wide, bigger than this one. I can have the breadth of this desk. Ownership has to do with what do you wrap your area of responsibility around. That is the ownership. Okay, so, and in this conversation, I am saying everything that impacts your business. Well, what impacts your business? Let me go backwards here. What impacts your business? Well, I was just looking at I think it was, the inflation rate year to date and over the last year and a year and 4 months I was looking at. And I was thinking, have I created that much extra income per month? Right? Because I don't want to be the effect of inflation. For those of you who don't know what inflation is that, it's the things that you commonly buy. And so let's just say that I took this bottle of water and I bought it and it was $3 and now it's $3.50. And then the next year it's $5.50. The increase of the common goods that you buy is called inflation. In other words, how much is it rising? And so that means that you're going to have that much more income. And if the inflation rate truly has increased 100%, then you would have needed to double your income to have the same lifestyle as you did last year. So inflation impacts my business. I have to be responsible for that. How do I be responsible? Well, I can't go to the Federal Reserve and say, hey, knock it off. Quit playing these stupid games hurting us. I just make more money. And I teach people to make more money. Because that is the only way that I can, like, throw a punch back. All right. So that is what ownership has to do with. So first, take ownership of your day. That's the first thing you've got to do. Drive out less productive actions. Replace them with income-producing actions. That's the first place where you get ownership and you say, all right, number one is I'm going to own my day. Number two, be the reason, responsible. You make time to learn the pipeline and do the pipeline. Acknowledge every mistake and admit failures. Take ownership of all of them. No excuses. Why? You do not need to explain why you failed or why you made a mistake. You just take ownership of it. Develop a plan, execute the plan, and win against mistakes and failures. Okay? So as you begin to do this, each time you fail, each time that you make a mistake, then you're going to get real familiar with that moment of going from this to putting on this. Because there's some point where you're doing fine and then you chose to do this, right? It's just like that. And so what I want you to kind of get this real sweet spot of saying is that in the moment, instead of letting the black hat come on going, no, 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 no. I don't want to have to do this 10 times a day. I just keep my white hat on, right? And so this ownership hat is a very big part of that. Okay, so kind of like give you some examples here. So oftentimes people say, I don't have time to do the business or something like that. And what it really most often has to do with is that they're just too busy with $50,000 a year things, so that stops them from being able to make the $1 million a year or the $200,000 a year or something like that. They have these things grooved in and they say, this is what I do, right? And they're not able to look at it new and say, wait a minute, now I can just do this instead, right? Or in addition, okay? So you go through here. This is called the 7-day reveal, where you just write down every 30 minutes what you did. I like to do it frequently so that I am sharp in my game. And so I'm just going to say, okay, those things right there, I'm going to have to delegate those to somebody else. All right, it's not working out. I just don't get any return from clearing my email and my Skype and my Telegram and my this and this and this. Okay, so what I do on the Telegram is that I do during that week for that video. Okay, so I have a Telegram channel. You can join it. I'll give it to you at the end. But so I answer them, but I'm not going to answer emails. I just find them utter waste, because I'll spend 2 hours and there's no value there. The spring cell that I didn't clear or something like that, right? It's ridiculous. All right. So each one of these, I'll put it over and say, you know what? I don't really need that in my life. I mean, it's fine, but it doesn't give me a return like I can get if I'm doing the pipeline. Okay, and so I get an hour down here. And so that's the way that it works. And then you replace that time, right? So these are the times to do actions that are going to yield higher income. And so you've got to be the reason this happens. And you got to be the reason why this doesn't keep going. So that's the reason. It's the way to look at that. All right, so catch yourself putting on the enemy jacket of procrastination, distraction, hanging on to old habits and routines, confusion, no motivation, victim of no resources, and hope, okay? Instead, put on the responsibility and ownership jacket, okay? So that's what I'm imparting to you, and the value of this if you knew it from a millionaire's perspective, is far superior to any of the videos that I've ever done, okay? That's the level that you should probably place the value on it because it's that big. So, love for you to comment, and have you ever experienced a time you were responsible, like really, really responsible for something? What was the outcome, right? Did you control it? Have you experienced a time you took full ownership of something? What was that outcome? And then do you see that these are identities you put on or take off? Okay, so that's that whole idea where you can feel it in the moment. Because when you can feel it in the moment, you can go, stop right there, right? Like you'll catch it. All right, and so then please, if you would, like the video, share it. If you feel compelled and you think somebody might want to watch this, and then also comment this right here and subscribe if you haven't already done so. We've got a YouTube or a Telegram channel, Network Marketing Power. It's where you can interact with me and you can ask questions, all right? And so, like I said, I always go in there and I answer those questions. One thing that I absolutely do cover. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate you.